or my question is, do you consider hip hop music that is made without samples to be less hip hop?
No.
Oh,
I've never
throw that out.
felt like that.
Throw it out to the chat too. Let's throw it out to the chat too. What do y'all say it again, Long? Make sure you said that so I want to make sure they heard that.
Well,
clear.
do you consider hip hop music that's made without samples to be less hip hop? Because I hate to go into this like elitist category, right? But a lot of times you'll see it from the legends that, typically speaking, they only do sample or they only can sample. Like they don't have any original stuff. They'll be like, nah, sampling is this great fundamental, whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it almost comes from an angle of like, why are you clowning on dope hip hop that is original? In the same, like as a defense, a lot of times as a defense for people that are going at sample hip hop, it's like, nah, they're both valid. Like you don't have to take one down just to big the other one up. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I've noticed that quite a bit.
Okay.
No, I mean,
it's
about
Jay
Moore.
that one. I don't think it's either which way.
No, I think
What
about
you,
a group like
go
the
ahead, Jay Moore.
Roots, who has, you know, I mean, and they've used samples before, you know, but, you know, when I'm thinking about, you know, organics through really 𝗀𝗱𝗱 Half-Life and Things Fall Apart, like there's a few samples, but not a lot, you know, because of course they have musicians in the band, people who can read music and, you know how to arrange actual songs. And I never felt like those albums were less hip hop than a Mobb Deep record. You know, I would listen to them at the same times with that is, you know, or a 𝗏𝗏 𝐀 album that is basically all sample based, you know, because at the end of the day, it's about the groove of the music and the complexity and the dopeness of the lyrics, you know. So, I mean, because you could have someone who doesn't have any samples, but you know, if the lyrics are whack and the groove isn't there, then like, you know, what am I really here for? You know, so I've never discounted anybody who didn't use samples, but you know, at the same time, like, you know, I understand because samples come from the fact that like when hip hop first started, people were rhyming over the breaks, the break beats, which
straight break beats
became the samples that made these, you know, hip hop records, if you will. But even though that was never the original intention, you know, I don't lend more credence to one or the other, you know, because if you're still within that spirit of hip hop, then I'm not going to say, oh, this ain't it because there's no sample here, or you took the shortcut, you know, because there's some people who would feel like, oh, well, you took a shortcut because you already used a piece of music that was already, you know, popping. You know, you know, Stay With Me by, you know, the Barges was used several times before, you know, Puff and Biggie got a hold of it to make One More Chance, you know. So, you know, just because you are able to freak a loop one way, it doesn't mean that it's automatically going to become a hit. You know, Puff Daddy was not the first person to use, you know, Every Breath You Take by the Police, you know, but he was able to freak it and make it a hit.
Huge record,
you know?
Huge record.
You know, and I know there are circumstances surrounding that, but like just because you take a popular loop, that doesn't automatically make it a hit. You know, and
I think that's my thing.
Perfect. It goes so many ways with that.
Here's my thing on that. Like, as a producer that prides myself on being able to do both very well, I'll tell anybody that. That's one of the me and Lone have always been those guys. There are no limitations. I've always leaned on that as one of the things that separates me and my homies from a lot of people. There are no limitations when it comes to that. But at the same time, when you talk about Primo and you talk about Pete Rock, talk about producers like that, I look at DJ Quick, Battle Cat, and those guys, I look at them the exact same way. They don't sample a lot. You know what I'm saying? But they're still
organized noise.
Like, if you think about it, you know, they sampled, but be clear, like, they're musicians. Like, organized noise get down. Like, they get busy. You know what I'm saying? So the Manny Fresh, he sampled some. You know Manny Fresh, a lot of them albums was no samples. Like he made a whole the whole culture of Cash Money not sampling a lot. Go ahead, Lone. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. But in Timbaland, back to the main point, Timbaland was the same way. Timbaland has a lot of original production. So does Pharrell. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
Pharrell is a beast, man.
What's funny too? What's funny too though is those same kids that are saying that about these albums or tracks being sampled are listening to their favorite artists now that have sampled shit that we came up on. Like, I mean, Mary the Stallion is soaring right now. That's their favorite out there.
Talk to him.
And she literally has 3 or 4 hip hop sampled shit that was hip hop.
Yeah.
Before it was hip hop. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a matter of knowing and knowing your history without being so quick to want to pass judgment and cancel something that you don't even know about.
Nah, for sure. And one more thing is that there's also this understanding that sampling is like taking a loop of something, you know, that's known, and then like taking that loop and doing something. But sampling is anything from taking a vocal stab to back in the 90s when they would just take stabs. It's taking a snare drum from a break record. It's taking a kick, a hi-hat. Exactly. A bass note, turning it into an instrument. Like sampling is fundamental in hip hop in that way. But I think a lot of times we're thinking of sampling as like looping. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but even if you play here's the thing about what me and Mike talked about. Like even if we have something that's completely original, a lot of times what happens is if we're working on section leader stuff, he'll make a lick, he'll give it to me, and then maybe I might chop it up and move it around a little bit, or vice versa. You know, like we're sampling ourselves in a sense, but it's still original. But anyways.
Or he'll play over the top of something that I sent him, or vice versa,
right?
And it still might get rearranged. So the art form to that, man. The DJ Sample Beats said, I think it's did I say your name right? I'm sorry if I did.
Sample Beats, yeah.
Dick Sample
Beats, yeah.
He says sampling is art. It is like it's a lot deeper than I think people really grasp. Well, like you have to really grasp the concept and really truly see that there's an art form to putting this together to make it sound like something. You have to understand chord progressions. You have to understand how music flows. There's a lot into it, man. It's easier than to just put the beat in there and do an 8-bar loop. It's a lot deeper than that.
If you've enjoyed this segment of the New Old Heads podcast, make sure to check out our live show every Tuesday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/newoldheads. And if you'd like to join our Discord community, do so by going to nohchat.com for talks on hip-hop, sports, music, news, and everything else.